Hello again, friends. Sifu Sylvain with you as we today dive into chapter 19 of the 28th chapter Lotus Sutra, the advantages of the Dharma preacher or teacher. So we're still developing or rounding out our understanding of Bodhisattva practice. Right? So, we've learned the right behavior, we've learned the merits, and now we're going to learn the merits of not just practicing as a Bodhisattva, the Buddhist method to the Buddha way, but an equal part of our practice to develop ourselves is to develop others. So, chapter 19, the advantages of the Dharma teacher, or the accumulation of merit, if you will, of teaching or preaching, whatever word you prefer. I prefer Dharma teacher, but you find different translations depending on which version of the Lotus Sutra you read. And before we get into it, Danmoku Sansho, shall we? Here we go. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay, let's get into it. Then the Buddha said to the Bodhisattva constant effort, the Great One, if any good sons or good daughters receive and embrace this Dharma Flower Sutra, this Myoho Renge Kyo, or read it, or recite it, or explain it, or copy it, they will obtain 800 merits or blessings, he says in here, of the eyes, 1,200 merits of the ears, 800 merits of the nose, 1,200 merits of the tongue, 800 advantages of the body, and 1,200 advantages of the mind. If you haven't picked up on it, I keep replacing blessings with other words that are more in tune with Buddhist thought. With these advantages, they will adorn the 6 faculties, making all of them pure. So this is a reference to the purification of the senses through the embracing, reciting, reading, copying, teaching of Myoho Renge Kyo. Such good sons or good daughters with the pure physical eyes received from their parents at birth will see whatever exists, whether exposed or hidden, in the 3,000 great thousandfold world. The mountains, forests, rivers, and seas down to the deepest purgatory and up to the highest heaven. They will see all the living beings in it and recognize both all of the causes and conditions and all of the effects and consequences resulting from their past actions. Then the world-honored one, wanting to say what he meant once again, spoke in verse. If anyone in the great assembly fearlessly teaches this Myoho Renge Kyo, here are all the blessings they will receive, or all the developments and the advantages they will receive. They will gain 800 advantages of superior vision. Because of these adornments, their eyes will be completely pure. With the eyes received from their parents at birth, they will see the whole 3,000-fold world, the exposed and the hidden Mount Sumeru, the Iron Circle Mountains, and all the other mountains and forests, as well as the waters of the great seas, rivers, and streams, down to the deepest purgatory and up to the highest heaven. They will see all the living beings within that world. Though not yet having divine vision, their physical eyes will have this kind of power. So what does he mean by all of this? On the surface, it might look like Okay, so we see all this stuff. We see it anyway, right? What he's trying to explicate is that with our normal mundane human eyes received from our parents is a reference to being born here in samsara, these eyes, these physical eyes that we have normally uh, in our samsaric life. Certainly we see everything because that's our mind of distinction. We're busy making patterns and making distinctions of everything, dualities and everything. And so we're constantly dissecting, there's the word I was looking for, our environs. What he's saying here is in addition to that normal vision, when you look at people with your normal vision, you see that they're male or female. You see that they're friendly or foe. You make all these discernments about people, right? And the more you get to know them, the more you refine those distinctions, correct? What he's saying in essence is that as you teach this Myoho Renge Kyo, you will become your vision then becomes less about what you see with your eyes and more about what you see with your eye consciousness. In other words, your mental ability to discern not only what filters through your eye as shape, color, form, but to see, quote unquote, into somebody's causal life. So that as you teach somebody or move them toward uh, uh, teaching themselves, learning Myoho Renge Kyo, leading them to a bodhisattva life, even from the very beginning, you will be able to understand quickly how they are who they are, how they perceive themselves versus how they in fact got to this point that you're observing at this moment. You'll be able to see causal relationships and effect relationships with um, the way they construct their lives and the way that they think. And you'll see, quote unquote, deeply into their epistemology, which is not something we normally do. But, you know, we all have friends or people that we've known for many years. Maybe we don't know them day to day, but we encounter them enough that over time we start to see clearly, well, you know, you do this all the time. And it's obvious to me that one of the reasons you always end up in this position, whether it's a predicament or whether it's a benefit, usually it's predicament. That's what we do with one another. We show each other our faults, right? Our flaws. And sometimes the people we're talking to will go, I know I do that. So what? Right? Or they'll get real maudlin and be a victim and go, I know, I always do this. Or oftentimes they'll turn to you and go, what are you talking about? I don't do that. Right? Um, So that's not any special power. We do it in our mundane lives because, again, we're pattern makers. So we see patterns in others that others don't see in themselves, just like others will see patterns in us that escape us, that we're so ingrained in, attached to those behaviors that we don't see them. And sometimes someone will point something out to you, even if they don't know you that well. And you'll say, what? Well, so-and-so thinks I'm like this. And then your other friend that you talk to about it says, well, yeah, you kind of do that. So that's just a mundane gift that we have. What's being said here is that your, let's call it power of insight, okay, instead of sight, your insight will develop much more sensitivity and clarity. That's why he says pure. And it's stuff you may see that you do not want to say to people that you're teaching because they're not ready to hear it. And see, the fact that you have that much insight, that's really amazing. That's really powerful. And a place where we start to develop true compassion, because now we see where we need to lead somebody, but we also see where they kind of need to lead themselves, and we need to make a path for them so that they gracefully can enter into that awareness and recognize it. And the joy then that we feel when they say for themselves, oh my goodness, this is my karma. This is something I've always done. I've never thought of that before. When we witness that, not only will we feel great, tremendous joy, but we will be watching karma being broken, being shifted, being redirected right in front of us. That, my friends, is a very powerful insight realization. And this is what he's saying. This is the supreme advantage of teaching the Dharma, because you will experience it in a whole new level, at a whole new depth of existence. This is why this Bodhisattva way is so critical to full enlightenment. Without this experience, everything becomes very insular and personal, and unfortunately, that drives us to yet another attachment, the attachment of enlightenment. That's a conundrum, isn't it? So we want enlightenment. We want single-mindedly to be awakened, but we don't want it as an attachment. We want it as a realization. That's why the word awakening is so popular. We want to experience the awakening. Where's the only form in the universe where you can experience anything? As a human conditioned being. If you're not a human conditioned being or a sentient being, then experience isn't available to you. So this is why, again, I say, Buddha is not a land where you go. Buddha is not a place you achieve or attain. It is an awakening of something that is already present. It is a different way of seeing and realization. It is a removal from all of the stuff that's in the way. Delusions, illusions, distinctions, the human mind, the samsaric mind. Label it any way you like. But it's not clear, pure experience until you're detached from all of that. And when you experience it happening, you know it. And it's always easier while in our samsaric human conditioned bodies and minds to see it in action in others. Then and only then do we get the chill down our spine and the butterflies in our stomach and go, wow, that's what enlightenment is. That's when we truly experience it. So this is what Mahayana Buddhism constantly over and over again states. That it is only through practice for yourself and others that you will discover that there's no difference. Until you practice with others, you won't truly discover what you are. So practice for self is to get to understand it well enough that you can teach it. But teaching it is what gets you to experience it on a whole new level for yourself and for the other. But they too will have to teach in order to experience what you just experienced. This is why Buddhism is a person-to-person practice. Yes, it's an amazing thing when many of us get together and chant and study, but it's the person-to-person relationship where it truly happens. Does it make sense? All right. What's more, constant effort. If any good sons are, you notice the name of the Bodhisattva? That's no mistake. This is why I'll remind you again. All of these names, as fanciful as they may be in Sanskrit or Pali or Chinese or Japanese, even in English, the name of the Bodhisattva is constant effort. It's not on his driver's license. This is a personage, an impersonage of a human capacity or a human behavior. Do you follow? So right now, with you, we are constant effort. You're trying to understand what I'm saying, and I'm trying desperately to describe what I'm trying to say. We're making constant effort. See, that's a beautiful device and a skillful means or device used throughout Buddhist teaching. But it's very easy to read that and go, what a weird name, right? Because that's our samsaric conditioned mind identifying things. I'm just trying to lift your identification a little bit higher. This isn't a personal name. It's a personage name. It's a behavioral name. Okay? What's more, constant effort, if any good sons or good daughters receive and embrace this sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo, read or recite it, or explain, or copy it, they will obtain 1,200 advantages of the ears, in the same way as the eyes, because you will not hear simply with your ear organ, you will hear with your ear consciousness. You will develop insights of ear consciousness. You will hear laments or conditions or blind sides or whatever. You will hear a much more distinct and diminutive conscience about what it is you're listening to or hearing. With pure ears, they will hear all the various words and sounds in the 3,000 great thousandfold world, whether exposed or hidden, down to the deepest purgatory and up to the highest heaven. Elephant sounds, horse sounds, cattle sounds, sounds of carriages, sounds of weeping, sounds of lamentation, conch sounds, drum sounds, gong sounds, bell sounds, sounds of laughter, sounds of conversation, sounds of men and women, sounds of boys and girls, sounds of the righteous and the unrighteous, sounds of suffering and of delight, sounds of common people and the holy people, happy and unhappy sounds, sounds of gods, sounds of dragons, sounds of satyrs, and centaurs or asuras and griffins, of chimeras and pythons, sounds of fire, sounds of water, sounds of wind, sounds from those in purgatory, sounds of animals, of hungry spirits, of monks and nuns, of sravakas and pratyeka buddhas, of bodhisattvas and of buddhas. In sum, though they have not yet obtained divine ears, whatever sounds there are in the 3,000 great thousandfold world, whether exposed or hidden, they will hear and understand them with the normal pure ears they received at birth from their parents. And while they will be able to distinguish all these various sounds, their ability to hear will not be harmed. Then the world-honored one, wanting to say what he meant, once again spoke in verse. The ears received at birth from one's parents are pure and unpolluted. With these ordinary ears you can hear the sound of 3,000 thousandfold worlds. Sounds of elephants, horses, gongs, and so on and so forth. You hear blah, blah, blah. Again, same story. You will hear at a distinctly new level of awareness. You will awaken your ear consciousness to not merely hear sounds that are in your immediate environment, but sounds that are formative of the sounds that you hear. Formative in that, and we do this anyway a little bit, right? When we hear somebody say something, we take them literally until we get to know them better and better. And we start to understand that, whenever she says that, what she really means is, right? Greater cognition, greater perception through our ear consciousness, through our eye consciousness. And I'm assuming he's going to go through every one of the 6 senses and do the same thing, because we're purifying our senses. We're honing our Buddha mind, our transcendent mind, our mind that understands how we delude ourselves and how we end up thinking what we are rather than knowing what we truly are. And we create these false castles, right? Moreover, constant effort, if any good sons or good daughters receive and embrace this sutra, read, recite, explain, or copy it, they will attain 800 advantages of the nose. Well, guess what? Their ability to smell will be purified so that they will be able to smell all kinds of fragrances in the upper and lower, inner and outer parts of the 3,000 great thousandfold world. The fragrances of sumana flowers, jatika flowers, malika flowers, gardenia flowers, patala flowers, red lotus flowers, blue lotus flowers, white lotus flowers, flowering trees, fruit trees, sandalwood, aloes, kampapatras, and tagaras, and incense blended from tens of millions of materials, powdered incense, incense pellets, and paste incense. Anyone who embraces this sutra while living here will be able to distinguish all of these. What's more, he or she will be able to distinguish the odors of living beings, of elephants, horses, cattle, sheep, men, boys, women, girls, and of plants, trees, bushes, and woods, whether near or far, whatever odor there is. They will smell them all and distinguish among them without mistake. One who embraces this sutra through living here will also detect the odors of the gods in the heavens, of Parijata and Kovidara trees, of Mandarava flowers and great Mandarava flowers, Manjushaka and great Manjushaka flowers, of sandalwoods and aloes, and of many kinds of powdered incense made of a mixture of flowers, all such heavenly fragrances, and those from which they are mixed. Such a person will never fail to smell and recognize, and he or she will smell the scents of the bodies of gods, the scent of Devendra, in his great palace, indulging the 5 desires and amusing himself, or the scent of when he is in the hall of the wonderful Dharma, preaching the Dharma to the gods of the Trayashtrimasha heaven, or when he walks around in his gardens for pleasures. Also from a distance such a person will detect the sense of bodies of others, male and female gods, up to the Brahma heaven, up to the highest heaven, a person of the bodies of Sharakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, bodies of Buddhas. Here she will smell all of them from afar and know where they live. Though they smell all these scents, their ability to smell will not be harmed or impaired. And if they wish to describe such scents in order to others, they will be able to remember them without making a mistake. And then he goes into verse again, describing the powers of the nose. I think you're getting the gist of it here. Basically, he goes again. Further constant effort, if any good sons or daughters receive and embrace this sutra, read, recite, explain, or copy it, they will gain 1,200 advantages of the tongue. So we're going to taste, speech, everything, right? I'm not discounting reading every word, by the way. Especially if it's your first time, I think it does some good to go through the examples, because there are hidden treasures in here. Here are blessings of the body, or advantages of the body, including a pure body, pure lapis lazuli, which all the living delight to see, because of the purity of their bodies, the living beings of the 3,000 great thousandfold world, as they are born to die, whether as superior or inferior, fine or ugly, or in good and bad places, all will be reflected in these bodies. The iron circle mountains, great iron circle mountains. This part of the purification is often referred to in helping overcome dis-ease, from a cold to cancer. This is why Buddhists will get together in larger groups and chant together to Itai Doshin, many in mind, many in body, singular in mind, one in mind, to help somebody, a member, a practicant, overcome illness, because of these very statements, by teaching others. And additionally, especially related to this, and Nichiren would talk about this, is that not only do people get together and chant together in order to help somebody overcome an illness, but if that person with the illness, determinedly goes out to help others practice. See, this is the bodhisattva step here. Not only for yourself, not only do you practice to overcome your illness, but by shakabuku, by shoju, by whatever means you're able to, bring other people to start practicing, to begin to move toward their own bodhisattva practice. That has tremendous power to purify the body and therefore get rid of its illness. They alone will see clearly what others do not. The whole multitude of beings in the 3,000-fold world, human and heavenly beings, asuras, beings in purgatory, spirits, animals, all such forms and images will be reflected in their bodies. The palaces of gods up to the highest heaven, iron circle and Meru mountains, Mount Great Meru and great oceans and bodies of waters will be reflected in their bodies. Buddhas and Shravakas and children of the Buddha, the Bodhisattvas, whether alone or preaching for multitudes, all will be reflected, though not yet having a flawless, wonderful Dharma nature body. In their pure ordinary bodies, everything will be reflected. So there it is again. Experience of Buddhahood in this life, in this samsaric body. Not somewhere else, not after death, right? I think this is the last one here. Receive and embrace the sutra. Read it, recite it, preach it, or copy it. They will obtain 1,200 advantages of the mind. So you may have thought we were talking about the mind all along. We're just, Buddhism breaks down the mind in its collective of consciousnesses. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, taste, tongue consciousness, smell, nose consciousness, mind consciousness. They all are different consciousnesses, a total of 9 altogether, including the Amala consciousness, which is our Buddha mind. Okay? 10 worlds, 9 consciousnesses. Don't get them mixed up. Each of the 6 senses that we know are consciousnesses because they work independently. And collectively, they work within the mind, which is separate in itself. It's more of an organizer. When they hear even a single verse or phrase with their pure minds, they will deeply understand its innumerable and unlimited meanings. Now that's a significant statement at this point. Unlike the others, which are narrow sectors of our samsaric existence, the mind, the collector of all of this, has 2 aspects, and it's actually 2 consciousnesses, but we'll get into that some other time. I think I already have videos on that, but what it's saying right there is the single verse is by chanting Myoho Renge Kyo, we open up the channel to all consciousness, transcend all of those consciousnesses to the Amala consciousness. And the Amala is beneath the Alaya consciousness, which is the storehouse of all our karmic energy buildup. So we transcend that, and that is the way in which all are cleansed. Having understood those meanings, they will be able to preach on that single phrase or verse for a month, for 4 months, even a year, and their many teachings will be in accord with the meanings and never contrary to the true nature of reality. If they teach about some secular text or speak about the political world or about matters related to livelihood, in every case they will do so in accord with the true Dharma. So your facilities of understanding, insight, will provide you with Dharma reference knowledge, Buddha knowledge, on how things do work, should work, will work. They will know all the workings of the minds, the movements of the minds, and the foolishness in the minds of the beings in the 6 states of the 3,000 great thousandfold world. And the 6 states are the 6 lower worlds, from hell to tranquility. Rapture is under tranquility, yeah. And then repeats all of this in verse. Though not yet having attained flawless wisdom, their minds will have the kind of purity that whatever they think, plan, or speak will all be in accord with the truth of the Buddha Dharma and with what previous Buddhas have taught in the sutras. So that's pretty amazing right there. This also is a description of awakening, isn't it? And it happens through the Buddha or the Bodhisattva way, through teaching. Through teaching, each of these consciousnesses purify, the mind purifies, therefore your grasp of the samsaric world starts to transcend its own gravity, its own attachments, and you deeply develop your Buddha mind, your Buddha wisdom, your Buddha knowledge. Never forget or make a single mistake. Anyone who embraces the Myoho Renge Kyo has this kind of pure mind, though not yet flawless. They will first have these characteristics. Those embracing this sutra, dwelling at peace on the rare ground, are cherished, respected, and enjoyed by all living beings. With tens of millions of good, skillful words, they are able to analyze and preach because they embrace the Myoho Renge Kyo. That is also why when you're a person of this sort, you can attract adversity. Some people don't like that their lack of insights, their self-destructiveness, their destructiveness can be so easily seen, dissected, taken apart, let alone repaired, fixed. They don't want to be fixed. They don't want to be told they need repair. And they're angry at you for pointing it out. So that kind of comes with the territory, and all throughout the teachings, from early teachings through to the most recent, all the scholarship, Nichiren quotes Buddha a lot, because Nichiren grew up in the shift of fiefdoms to the shogunate, to the samurai government. He lived in a very violent, brutal time. And he himself was attacked, but also banished, sent to islands of very few inhabitants, harsh weather, with little but the robes on his back, just to shut him up. Because it wasn't an issue of him not being right. It was more an issue of him being right. And the people he was correcting in the government and the shogunate and so forth didn't want to hear from this puny little Buddhist whatever. Who are you, Mr. Know-it-all? Well, I'll slice your head off, right? They tried to slice his head off. And his life was in rhythm with the universe, and a very auspicious thing happened that day that he was supposed to have his head cut off, and it freaked everybody out that was there, so they didn't cut his head off. People talk about Buddhist life condition and being in rhythm with the universe. Rhythm is very important to a Buddhist because we chant in a rhythm. We live in a rhythm. We observe the rhythm day and night, moon and stars. We're always, ask any woman about rhythm. Let her tell you about her 28-day rhythm. Tell me that rhythm in the universe is not a real thing. Okay? All the way up to stars that we call pulsars. There's rhythm in everything. There's rhythm in atoms, subatomic particles. There is in the boundary between being and not being in the quantum gravity fields, a constant, faster than light shifting of being and not being. There's a rhythm. This is why we adopt a rhythm when we chant. We don't just randomly holler out syllables, right? And that rhythm allows us to connect, to fuse with Gohanzan, to fuse with our universal entity, the rhythm of life. All right, so that's chapter 19. Please read it, reread it. Hopefully what I've said helps lend some insight into what it is we're reading together. Again, if you have questions, please ask them. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm missing, what you're missing, what I need to improve, what I may need to stop talking about so much. I've had a comment saying, I love what you said, but I wish you could say it in less words. So I did. I answered a comment and I said, okay, basically this. And I laughed because she's right. I am more concerned with leaving out information than I am about giving too much. That's not an excuse. I just appreciate your patience in knowing that that's my endeavor. I don't want to leave anything out that I can think of, and that's my limitation. So help me out, okay? Thank you so much. Please, Daimoku Sancho with me, and we'll move on to the next chapter, okay? Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu. Thank you so much. I will see you soon.